Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer who lost a horse, ran away. And all the neighbors came around that evening and said, "That's too bad." And he said, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back and brought 7 wild horses with it. And all the neighbors came around and said, "Why, that's great, isn't it?" And he said, "Maybe." The next day, his son was attempting to tame one of these horses and was riding it and was thrown and broke his leg. And all the neighbors came round in the evening and said, "Well, that's too bad, isn't it?" And the farmer said, "Maybe." And the next day, the conscription officers came around looking for people for the army, and they rejected his son because he had a broken leg. And all the neighbors came round that evening and said, "Isn't that wonderful?" And he said, "Maybe."
All right, I'm ready. Are you ready, Jen?
I'm ready.
Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to
Zen Farmer,
our grassroots recovery podcast. Thanks for hanging in tight with us. We took a couple of weeks off. You know, stuff happens and things, but we are excited to come back with a whole string of new episodes lined up. Some new guests that we plan on having on the show, including a very special friend that we have here today.
So I'd like to welcome Chandler.
Yeah.
He's our brother in recovery. He has recently celebrated 5 years in recovery.
Woo!
And he works in peer support. So with that, I'm going to give you Chandler.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hope you had no problems finding our super
Hidey hole.
high-end production studio this afternoon.
I did all right.
Yes. So yeah, please, if you feel comfortable, just tell us a little bit about yourself and whatever you'd like to share with us and other folks across the land of YouTube and now Spotify.
That's right.
I've been working on this recovery thing for a few years now. Doesn't mean it. I've got it perfected and never will. I don't know. I guess we'll start out. A little bit further back in time. I guess we'll Tarantino it. Key is surrender, and surrender comes from the rest of it. But I guess we start out as a child. I had pretty regular upbringing until about 9 years old. I lost my mom, and things kind of just went out of control at that point. My dad started turning to alcohol and everything else, and us kids lived in the inner city, were running the streets, just doing wild and crazy things. I'm not going to try to be too explicit, but like, I did some crazy things as a child. I had to survive, and by the age of 13, 14 years old, I had already been smoking marijuana and drinking to try to cover up the pain, and I had to pay for it, and by that time I knew how to make and sell crack. I grew up in the city, so it just went from there, and things went out of control. I was in and out of juvie. But the last time I was in juvie, counselor came up to me. He looked at my scores, for my GED and everything else. He just told me I need to move out of the city, get away from everybody. And I didn't know that there was different lives elsewhere. All I knew was the concrete jungle. I never went on vacation or knew that there was life, in different places. That's all I knew, So, and so when I got out, like, I decided I'm going to leave, but I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to go. Where am I, how the heck am I supposed to survive? out of the city. I don't even have family outside of the city, you know. And the only thing I knew as a child, you know, trying to survive when I wasn't selling drugs or something stupid, you know, was going to the carnival, you know, and so I went to the carnival, you know, and ended up going from city to city, state to state, you know, with a different carnival, and just kind of just ran all over the place, you know, and that was, you know, fun, you know, until it wasn't, you know, just like anything else. And I met somebody out here in Podunk, Pennsylvania, you know what I mean? But, I mean, I love it, you know what I mean? It was quiet. And so I stuck around, you know, even after me and that person weren't together no more, like, I stayed with it. I'm like, I love it, you know, and most of the people that was like thought I was way older just because I was, you know, living on my own and everything else, you know, but I just kept moving forward, you know, and like, but I wasn't really doing much with my life, you know. I was dead end jobs, you know, still smoking and drinking, you know, didn't really do nothing hard or nothing, you know, might have dipped and dabbled, but like, I guess, I guess when my addiction really took a turn for the worse is I was in college. Like, I started going to college because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, you know, and like, and it was so crazy. Like, I was I was called the student advisor, and I was telling her what I wanted to go to school to be a culinary artist. You know what I mean? Like, I love to cook. Let's do something. And Charmaine, I hope she don't make get mad, but I mean, I didn't give her a last name, but like, she told me, she said, why don't you think about what you want to do and pray to God about it? Like, I'm like, I didn't talk to God in years. You know what I mean? My mom was a Sunday school teacher, and when she passed away, like, I was so mad at God, I didn't want to talk to nobody, you know? And so I did. Like, she was like, you know, do that, think about it, pray about it, call me back in a couple days. And I started praying, and I mean, if I say it was the whole conversation, you know, they might put me in a white suit tomorrow or something. Like, I did. I had a good conversation with God, and pretty much, like, like before that point, I felt like my entire life was for nothing. You know what I mean? I felt like I had no real purpose or anything else, and that everything that I went through was for nothing. You know, and like when I was sitting there praying about it, the only thing I kept thinking in my mind was what would come easy, like what would come the best. You know what I mean? And I started thinking about my troubled youth and everything else, and like, you know, what if I go to school for, you know, try to help troubled youth? Maybe I could be that counselor to tell somebody someday, you know, hey, you made it. You know, hey, you can do better. You know, give somebody a piece of hope, because I didn't have hope before that. You know, all I knew was the streets. You know, I didn't have no hope. You know, and I didn't have an environment to have hope in. You know, and when he gave me that piece of hope, that meant everything. And so, like, I started thinking about that, like, that's what I want to do. So I started going for my bachelor's in corrections. You know, and it was crazy because I got my GED, hadn't been to school in 15 years, you know, nothing. And I'm going to go to school for this. I go to Kaplan University, and they didn't even have an entrance exam. Like, so it was either you knew it or you didn't. You know, no wonder at the time I think they had a 38% success rate, but they were like one of the number one accredited online colleges. So I'm like, let me do this, you know, and I made president's day.
Yay!
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like, and continue to do good. You know, like my first 2 terms blew it out the water. You know, and then, you know, got through criminal justice 101, and my 3rd term in, I'm writing this paper, I'm You know what I mean? We're still smoking a little pot here and there. Like when one buddy come over, he had some other stuff. You know what I mean? He had some methamphetamine, and I started using. You know what I mean? And at first, it was like, yeah, man, I could do this paper in one night. You know what I mean? Like get it done and continue on with my life. You know what I mean? But as we all know, that's not how it works. You know what I mean? It worked for a small amount of time, and I ended up dropping out. You know, and like I felt then, like, and I believe the enemy told me in my head. You know what I mean? If like if I give up, God's done with me. You know, and that's the way I felt when I quit school. Like was like I just killed my purpose. You know what I mean? There's nothing left. So through that time, I like now I just start coping even more, if you want to call it that. You know, to say it lightly, but I started using a lot of different drugs. You know what I mean? I lost that care again. I lost that drive, and you know, my family started getting torn apart, and it was just it everything was just crashing down around me. And I remember getting pulled over. You know, would have been 2017, and ended up with a DUI and stuff. And I felt like God was telling me right there and then that, you know, it's time to change your life. It's time to do something different. And we all know how it works. You know, even if I want to change right now, it ain't gonna happen right now. I wish it was just serendipity, a bam, and been good. But it didn't work like that. You know what I mean? Like it took me probably another 9 months, 9 months after that until I went to my first rehab. You know, and you know, I was off for the races. You know, I got clean, came home. You know, sent my wife to rehab. Like I want to do this. I want to do this right. And came home, and she's in rehab, and we got all these shut off notices. You know what I mean? And needless to say, I didn't know how to come up with $2,300. I didn't know that there was support out there. I didn't know that there was case managers out there, anything like that. Like I come home and was alone. I had the kids, and we're about to get our house paid. What am I going to do? That's the only thing I knew how to do. You know what I mean? And little did I know that later would end up saving my life down the road. You know what I mean? Like, just fast forward, you know, 9 months after that, you know, probation, I started using again. Probation come to my house. They had heard that I was using, but like, I was happy. Like, when I was using that, when I relapsed, that was the worst time of my life. You know what I mean? Like, it was a job. You know what I mean? It was horrible. You know, and like, I just wanted a different life. I wanted to start over. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know. I wanted my family back, and I kept saying, like, I just want things to be the way they were. You know, I never wanted it to be that way because that's what led to where I was. But like I wanted to change, you know, and I didn't know how to go about doing it. I was too afraid to turn myself in, like, or anything else. But when they showed up at the door, I was so relieved. Like, I told them, I told them where everything was, everything else, you know what I mean? Completely honest, like, and was like ready to go to rehab again, you know? Went to jail. They was going to send me to rehab here. 9 months prior to that, here they was putting out investigation on me. And, you know, I had charges from forever ago, you know? And so I ended up staying in jail, getting in treatment for it, And that was God in itself there too, because probationary, they didn't want me in treatment court. I came home from rehab on house arrest and was selling drugs. They're like, no, you're not getting nothing. And ill-advised, I wrote a letter to Chad Weaver, and the treatment team, and just was like, look, like, I don't know what else to do. I said, but all of my charges stem around my addiction. I said, and I gave him my whole story. Like, it was stupid. It was before my preliminary hearing, anything. Like I wouldn't advise that to anybody, to write this whole admission of guilt letter. You know what I mean? And just lay it on the table. Like, I heard about the resources you guys have. I heard about, the ability. I need it all. You know what I mean? And I just didn't know what else to do. And I figured, it's a shot in the dark. You know what I mean? Like, sent the letter, next thing you know, I'm in treatment court. You know what I mean? And I was in jail for like 5 months. They're like, we're going to send you home. And I said, no. I said, send me to rehab first. They're like, but you've been in jail for 5 months. I said, I need a step-down program. Because in my mind, I even told my wife this. I said, in my mind, I know if I can go to rehab and not smoke a cigarette, then I'll be that much stronger when I hit the streets and somebody offers me something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, everybody is smoking cigarettes in rehab. You know what I mean? And it's legal. If I can stay away from them, I'll be all right. And I did. And I went to treatment court, hit the ground running. Started working on myself. Because that's what it comes down to. Like, all those years I was coping with stuff and just shoving it in a bag. For years and years, just shoving stuff in a bag. Every time something happened to me, I'd shove it in a bag, take it up. You know what I mean? And I just, my bag was so full that my life had become unmanageable. There was nothing left to do. I couldn't cope with anything else. Every time I got hit with something, my life was in shambles, whether it be my Pop-Tart broke into my milk or what. My life was just trashed, and I didn't have nothing else to deal with. So I sat down, you know what I mean? And I sat down with God and stuff. Like, I grieved my mom's death. That was one of the first things I had to get on the table. You know what I mean? And then I grieved my dad's death. And then, started dealing with some other stuff. I took out that bag and I started looking at all the stuff and I started cleaning it out. There was some stuff I wasn't ready to get rid of yet. So I set it on the shelf. But through time I was able to start cleaning out that bag to a point where I no longer needed to cope. I no longer needed, all that coping skills because I was healing. I was turning those scabs into scars. And that's the number one thing. If I got to tell anybody, coping skills are great, healthy or unhealthy, for a time. You know what I mean? Like, I would never tell somebody to do some unhealthy coping, but sometimes, it's what it takes to get through something. But it can't be forever. Sooner or later, we have to stop coping. Sooner or later, we have to turn that scab into a scar. You know what I mean? Like, we have to. Like, yeah, we can still look down at the scar. We can still, know that it happened. But we don't want to go back there. We don't want to live in that because that's where depression and anxiety come from. It's holding on to all that. Like, I don't want to hold on to that no more. And I started to heal. I no longer deal with the sickness of anxiety and depression. I no longer have the desire to use. But that wasn't from me. That was God, because I started giving God things that He needed me to get rid of. And then it didn't stop with just drugs. Like, I started getting rid of other stuff along the way too. The things that were bad for me. I used to mess with women. You know what I mean? and you know was uh just how God worked everything out in the long run. Like I never put in an application for a job. You know, like the only one I did recently was just recently. You know, but like I never I never tried to go look for something. Like God brought everything to me. You know, I was working in a garage and my buddy owned a restaurant was like, hey, you know, we lost a cook. I need a cook. You know, I hear you talking. You can cook. I went and did that for a while, and I told him like, this is just a stepping stone. Until something else comes along. And I'm sitting there, and my old peer specialist comes in one day. She was like, you got to put in an application. She said, you would be great. And so I did. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I put in my resume, but like it came to me. And then I'm working with them, and you know, a year and a half later I go to an outside training, and you know, next thing you know, somebody's going, hey, give me your information. You know, like I like, you know, I like to talk to you. I wasn't even looking for the job, and that stuff just happened, and it continues to happen all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just amazing. You know. I guess one of the struggles that I've had though, like, was little over 2 years ago. I started dealing with some fatigue, some compassion fatigue. You know, you're helping everybody else all the time. Sooner or later, you know, and you ain't filling your own cup. You end up empty. And that's how I was feeling. Like I felt like I don't know what to do. How can I keep going? Went to my doctor. My doctor's like, well, we tried stuff back in the day. You know what I mean? Like that never worked because they said I had a reverse chemical imbalance. I'm like, why don't you try medical marijuana? I'm like, but I'm an addict. He was like, well, if you use it symptomatically, I don't think he understood what addict meant. You know what I mean? But like using that, just like it was okay for a time. Like, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody because I started realizing that I'm coping again. You know, now I'm holding stuff in again. Now stuff's bouncing off of me that shouldn't be bouncing off of me. You know, I should be helping people through this, but it's not even affecting me because, you know, I'm medicated. You know, and sooner or later, I ended up cussing somebody out. I hadn't cussed in like 3 years. I ended up cussing somebody out. And that's when I realized, oh, crap. Like, I need to change. I mean, so I ended up putting it down too. Like, you know what I mean? That's part of my recovery story. You know what I mean? Like I tried to medicate. It don't work. You know, I cannot cope. You know what I mean? I need to heal. I need to deal with stuff as it comes on me. I need to deal with stuff when it hits me. You know what I mean? Like some will call that a relapse. Some will call that, you know, just doing research. You know what I mean? Like it was stupid, is what it was in the long run. You know what I mean? Like, you know, for myself, you know, I had to get right, you know, in my community or whatnot. But like when it comes down to it, like I realized that like nothing that I use as an escapism or trying to escape reality is ever going to work. I need to talk about things. I need to share things. When I'm feeling pain, I need to let somebody know I'm feeling pain. I need to take time for self. You know, and I started doing all those things. Stayed in the basics. You know what I mean? Like for me, my basis is getting up in the morning and spending my time with my higher power. Because that's where all my strength comes from. You know, and if I ain't got no strength, I can't do nobody else. just try to give somebody a little bit of hope. Let them know where I came from, where I've been, and stuff that I go through. You know, I still go through struggles, but I know, like from my past, my faith shows me that there's sunshine on the other side of this storm. You know what I mean? Like regardless, you know, it's going to be another day. You know, and I think that's why I like sunrises so much more than sunset. You know, so many people talk about sunsets, like yeah, it's the end of the day, but what about the new beginning? Like I love a sunrise, like more than anything else, because it just shows me like how something new, life started, like just over and over again. You know, I was dead, and I felt like God gave me new life. Like, and like I was saying, like I would never go back to the life I was living before the big addiction. You know, for me, I mean, regardless, it was all addiction. You know, because I was escaping. You know, anything like, but I wouldn't want to go back to before that because I wasn't talking about it. I didn't have joy. I didn't have peace. I didn't know what love was. You know what I mean? Like I thought love was a feeling, and I was so wrong. You know what I mean? Like love is a choice. So's peace. So's joy. You know what I mean? Those spiritual principles are, you know, in the Bible it talks about, you know, fruits of the spirit are all choices. You choose love. Choose joy. You know what I mean? And you just hold on to it. You know, yeah, you're gonna have bad days, but don't thrive to be for happiness. Happiness comes from happiness, which means somebody can take it. You know, and we don't want that. We don't want somebody, because if we're just thriving to be happy, then you know we're not gonna end up having joy. You know, we're not gonna find that peace and serenity. You know, I learned something. If I learned anything through addiction, and hopefully I don't catch nobody, you know, in a squirrel cage. But something I learned, and it was called third donkeyism, and I'll leave it at that. But it was just the sound I heard, and I made it. I was gone, but I knew it meant something to me. You know what I mean? Like, and I wrote it down one day, and it was 3RDNK. I'm like, why? You know, and like I said, I was in full blown active addiction at the time, so who knows? You know, but I knew it meant something to me, and I looked at this, and I wrote it on my basement wall, and I looked it up, and the one day I'm like, man, that kind of looks like a crazy equation. Like, and if you break it down, if a letter is next to a letter, that's multiplication. You know, and third would also n times k to the third power. I'm like, and it sounds crazy because it was. You know, I was in my full blown active addiction. That's nuts. You know what I mean? But like so I'm like, nice times kindness to the third power.
Wow.
You know, what's nice times kindness? It's happiness. So being happy, creating others' happiness creates happiness, serenity, and that's what life is about. Like, if you want the secret to happiness, be happy with making others happy. Do some service. Help somebody else out. You know, and it's almost selfish in the end, because I ain't never helped somebody and seen that they was happy about it and walked away mad. You know
True.
what I mean? Like, not once. Like, so like I said, it's almost selfish in a way, but in the end, like, it's genius. You know what I mean? Like, that is the secret to happiness, is just being happy, making somebody else happy. You know, like, I mean, I might have learned that in my active addiction, but it's true. You know what I mean? Like, put it out there. You know, like, I don't know. And that's why I like peer support, recovery support. Just, you know, using my experience to give somebody else hope. teaching other people, like, it sucks at work. I can't talk about God all the time and stuff like that. But as soon as somebody opens that door,
Yeah.
as soon as somebody opens that door, I walk right in.
Yeah.
You know, because if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be sitting here. You know, the fact that, you know, I was able to do, you know, recovery meetings inside Jefferson County Jail is only God. I mean, you guys know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can't walk in. You can't even write somebody in that jail if you've been there in the last 5 years. You know what I mean? And I'm able to bring people to me. You know, not just me. That's God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's holy. You know, like I on my own power I couldn't do that. You know what I mean? I couldn't be sitting here today. You know, because, you know, I'd be all up in my head about it and everything else. You know, trying to write something down. You know, like I can't live like that. Like, I want to live, you know, for somebody else's good. You know, and they always talk about, like, how do you discern your will from God's will? You know what I mean? And if I had to say, how do I do that? You got two decisions to make. Which one's God's will? Take myself out of the equation and see if one of them can still happen. Because God's going to get it done regardless. If I take myself out of the equation at some point, then that's part of it.
Very nicely put. That's it.
The opposite of, you know,
Yeah.
God's will is my will.
Yeah.
If I take my selfishness out of it, take myself out of it, then it can happen. And if it can't, then it's God's will.
Absolutely. From my experience too, when something is easy, it's God's will. Like just boom, 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 it just happens.
Right.
When it gets very complicated, it's me trying to run the show.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't working out. Maybe if
Yeah.
I try it from this angle, you know, because it's something that I want. Yeah, I can relate to so much of your story.
Yeah, my one friend says, she said, life is like a fart. If you have to push it, it's probably crap.
Yes. It's true. It's true.
And so often throughout, you had said, you know, everything just felt so organic. Like the steps were before you, and you're basically, you know, how you mentioned not having to put in an application. You just so happened to be in that place at that time, by trusting that power that was within you
Mhm.
and knowing what was going to grant you that serenity, but just going through with it. I mean, I think back to early on how someone had opened themselves up to you, right? And asked you to explore yourself a little bit and asked you to find that meaning for yourself. Look where it's led you.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that you're able to do that today with so many countless people, I mean, that must just turn the biggest circle, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
beautiful.
And then my mind goes nuts with thinking how many of them in turn want to continue to do the same thing, because it requires this community, right? And it requires us knowing whatever is speaking to us. I mean, we've got to listen to that. Our hearts are overwhelmingly powerful in that respect. I mean, God bless, brother. Like, thank you so much for coming on. And like Janet said, Chandler, I'd known you for about 90 seconds before we walked in today. And I just keep thinking to myself, that's me, that's me, that's
Yep.
me, that's me. Yeah.
It's crazy you
Yeah,
say
right.
that about, like, planting the seed. You know?
Yes.
Like, it wasn't too long ago. I don't know if I told Jen about this or not. Like, I'm sitting there on my front porch, and I'm looking at this maple tree in my house, and it's like getting ready to release its seed.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? And I started thinking about, like, I started thinking, like, how beautiful, like, the metaphor is there, like just because if you could plant one seed and nurture it and let it grow just right, millions of seeds. I mean, this maple tree out front of my house is the biggest tree that and healthy. Like, I mean, its trunk is probably almost the size of this desk.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you could probably make the whole tabletop out of this trunk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, like, I mean,
And that's all
and
it
I'm
took.
just looking at all these seeds, and I'm like, man, all it took was one seed to be planted.
Yep.
Yeah.
That ripple effect.
Yeah.
Yep. we used to do it the opposite way.
Right.
We would affect people, and that negativity would spiral out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just feels good to have the freedom
Right.
that we have today.
And we talked about the ripple effect.
Mhm.
One person said, "How do we stop the ripple?" I said, "It's hard." I said, "Because you might throw a little pebble, and it makes a little ripple, and then you throw a big rock, and it ripples all the way out, and it reverbs back
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
to us.
Sure, it does.
We feel the ripple
Yeah.
effects,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps going. The only way I know to change those ripples is keep throwing more pebbles.
Mhm.
They're good pebbles. Change the ripple.
Mm-hmm.
Make that ripple go into a different direction, or completely,
Mhm.
just keep making that ripple."
Positive ripples.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it just, I don't know. You're right. It's a choice. It's up to us every day.
And I mean, you brought up so many great points. I loved your take on coping.
Mhm.
How that's great for so long until, man, we know we got to start healing, right? And that's when the true change really sets in. At least in your experience, Jen, I'm sure you felt that similarly.
Yeah.
And as I was slowly getting into this world of recovery that I really didn't know too much about and still trying to find my way, there were times when I could hear that voice saying, like, are you sure this is, are you sure the things you're doing are lining up with the things you're saying? And once you get that seed planted, that doesn't really go away, right? So we continue to explore, and then, once we find ourselves making those correct decisions for ourselves, the voices go away, and that's my assurance that I'm on the right track. Sure. And, how else did I want to say? Following up with coping. Oh my goodness. Drawn a blank. It'll come back to me. It sure will. I mean, geez, Chandler, you've been through a lot, man. You've seen a lot, and you're able to turn it all for the greater betterment of not only you but for those around you.
Absolutely.
And this is what we're doing here.
Right.
Yes.
And you were talking about happiness. Happiness is simply a byproduct of living the right way, and sharing with other people. That connectivity, I think that's what we all crave when we're in our addiction. And we can't. We're so blocked off
Mhm.
from, we don't even, even self. In God, how are we able to connect to other people? And we're so lonely. And then we get into recovery and we slowly start letting people know us. It's kind of like dipping your toe in the water. It's so scary at first, and then we see like, oh, these people are just like me. And then we slowly start to tear down the walls and let people in. And then we grow to care about them, and then we grow to care about ourselves. And it's really a beautiful process.
Like I was talking about, like, I never put in an application or tried to do anything. Like, everything always came to me. I seen this ad for this new thing that's gonna go on in a couple of months. And it was a 1 week thing. But it was with a couple of youth. And they were talking about the credit card. 1 week. I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. You know what I mean? Like, and I got it.
Yay!
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I get to
Perfect
do that.
person for you.
Yeah.
For
You
it.
know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, it's a 5-day job, but how many seats can I plant?
Oh
Like, 5
my,
days?
you'll love it. You'll leave there recharged. That'll
Mhm.
help
That's-
recharge
I
you.
guess it's supposed to be like
Mhm.
kids, like
That's awesome.
Awesome.
just hanging out at college.
Mhm.
That's all these kids need.
Yes, and you're going to be the person to deliver that. Again, it makes everything that we've gone through in our life worth something. If we can share that with other people, to be able to connect to their wounds where we've been wounded and have that understanding. Again, it comes down to that connectivity. It's so vital. You're going to be able to understand where they're coming from because you've been there. It's so beautiful. It really is. All that suffering
passion fatigue was the point I wanted to bring up. Sorry.
No, you're good.
But yeah, I just wanted to remark on how well that, and I still feel like it's something that's not really brought up a lot. However, we're starting to see more of it. So to those listening, if you are feeling a certain way and things aren't right, there are tons of great ways to alleviate that and to help yourself by, reaching out to a friend or talking about it, right? That's what we've discovered works best for us. I mean, myself personally, anyway, got to let somebody know. I'm happy to have Jen here by my side all the time. Consider her my partner. She knows me better than anybody at this point in our professional relationship. And I felt comfortable opening up, being vulnerable. These are the things that we had such a hard time with. But now we found it is like some of the most gratifying things that we can have is to just be that open, honest, transparent person now. I'm no longer afraid of being awkward or whatever, man. Like that's
we roll
that's
with it.
what I dig now. Yeah.
I'm telling you,
love it.
I used to be an introvert.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, committing.
We got this.
I never would have
Sure.
done, 7 or even 20 years ago. Like, it's great. Like, I mean, the way me and you connected, you know what I mean? Like, just continue, and I call them, like, I watch this thing, TED Talk, and I can't remember the actual name of the TED Talk, but it talk about and then, you know what I mean? And it was, like, most people say story like, oh, yeah, I was going to college, and then, this happened. Well, what's that and then? And those are what I try to create the most, in my life now. Like, I try to get out there and meet new people and stuff like that. You never know what connection you're going to make to help progress yourself or help progress somebody else. And them all.
I like that a lot.
That's a TED Talk. I mean, you can find it by just putting that in and
Cool.
then TED Talk. Like, and it'll come up something else.
Well, listen, folks. Yeah, we'll check for the link and post it in the description below.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. Also, in terms of the other thing I wanted to mention was, how that vulnerability and that openness creates such a bounty of connections in our personal lives. When we're not afraid to talk about our recoveries and to, bring that up with people. I think of another great example. I don't want to name at this point. But just by talking with that individual today, he was, opened right up, and I'm like, "Whoa, you too!" Couldn't believe it, And here, find out, got an anniversary coming up, and we were just able to connect on that level. This is someone just in my passing day to day, right? To keep our network growing and to keep our community tight, fat. Like, what's up? Who's out there? Guys, let's feel free to let the world that we're out there, and you've got people like Chandler and Jen and myself to navigate through this and discover what it's like on this side and just be grateful, thankful, happy to be a part of it, and that whatever we can do to extend that reach, keep throwing pebbles out there. I love it when you had said that throw a big rock and it comes back. Like, I've never actually really heard it put that way before, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, it does come back.
Positive or negative. We reap what we sow. We attract what we are.
Yeah.
For sure.
Chandler, would you like to come back sometime?
I
think we could go on for a minute.
I know.
Man. This is great.
Like, I mean,
thank you so much.
Sometimes I have to shut myself up.
By all means, go, man.
Sometimes I can talk forever.
Yeah, that was really great to have you.
But I know, when before I start something like this, I always pray, and when I feel like I'm forcing it, I know it's no longer me.
That's right.
It's not supposed to be me.
Awesome.
If I ain't got nothing to say, then I need to shut up.
Fair.
I can relate to that a lot.
Fair. Well, folks, I think that's all the time we have for today on
Zen Farmer.
Once again, we'd love to thank our guest Chandler for coming on with
amazing.
us. Yeah.
Yes, thanks for sharing your
Thanks for having
story.
me.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we
Keep
love
doing the great work that you do.
You
and
do a lot of
absolutely.
service
Yeah.
work too.
Love it.
Chandler's very involved in a lot of things, a lot of good things.
Awesome. All right, gang. Well, until next time, we thank you. We love you. And yeah, take it easy and stuff. Okay, bye.
Goodbye.